fun. In just a second, I'm going to be introducing author Camille Di Maio, and I cannot wait to talk to her. I've been wanting to read this book, The Way of Beauty. I've been seeing it all over Instagram. The cover's crazy good. You're going to be looking at the cover on the beginning of this video, and it's historical fiction. I love historical fiction. It takes place between 1900 to 1963, the start of Penn Station, all the way till when they tore down Penn Station and rebuilt it with Madison Square Garden. Great story, everyone. I cannot wait. And here's Camille.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited because I get to speak with author Camille Di Maio. And I hope I'm saying Di Maio right, or Di Maio. Is it Di Maio?
It's Di Maio, like Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, like Cinco de Maio, and that's coming up. So I'm so excited. We're going to be talking about her brand new book that comes out today, because this is coming out today, and it's The Way of Beauty. And I feel like we should have talked a long time ago, but I'm so happy that we're finally talking.
Yes, me too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I saw a very interesting thing that we have in common, though. When I went to your website, you have homeschooled your 4 children, and I have 6 children, and I've homeschooled all of them.
Oh, I love having that in common with you. That's great.
Isn't that awesome? I know. I love when I find other homeschooling moms, because I don't know a lot. I mean, in my area, I'm kind of not popular, or, it's not a popular thing. But I did it out of necessity at some point. And then my last son is 15, and I'm still homeschooling him. And we'll see. You may want to go to high school. I never made it a forever thing with each one of them. It was different for every one of them. I don't know how you did it, but it was different for each child.
Oh, year by year, child by child, whatever works. But you're way ahead of me. I just got my first off to college, so I still have 3 more we're working on.
Oh, you still have 3 at home that you're homeschooling?
Yes.
And writing all these books, how are you doing that?
I get up early in the morning.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, then I feel like less, because, I feel like with homeschooling, my last one, I'm like, but I've been doing it for so long. My oldest son is 30. He's going to be 31 this year. So I've been doing it a long time. But, I feel like as you do it year by year by year, you get a little, I don't know. I feel like sometimes I put more on him. I'm like, here, just to go do this, because I feel like I don't know. With the first ones, when it's all new, it's just different. But,
Yeah. Like anything else, you get used to it. It just becomes part of life, and you don't think about it quite so much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's and I'm used to having kids at home, just like you are. Like, I'm just used to that. That's my way of life, and a lot of people are used to not. So
Right. No, that's just all I know.
Well, you know what? That's what homeschooling my children is what began my love of historical fiction, because I learned very early on that handing them a history book as opposed to Johnny Tremaine, I use every year for American Revolution.
Yeah.
It was just so much. They wanted Johnny Tremaine. They didn't want to go from the history book. They wanted the story behind it. And so there began my love of historical fiction. And, people always say that to me, like, you do so many historical fiction. I'm like, I know, because I love historical fiction so much.
Definitely.
And you're very good at it. What I loved about this book is the timing for me is I had just watched a documentary on Penn Station.
Oh, okay.
And I'm here in Pennsylvania. New York City is 2 hours from me. So when I want to go into New York, I take a bus, and it goes right to Penn Station. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm big on documentaries at night. Other people watch TV shows. I watch documentaries. And so I found this documentary, and I was like blown away by this on Penn Station, because I've been there so many times and didn't know the history. So when I started reading your book, I was like, oh my gosh, this is about Penn Station.
I found probably the same documentary off of PBS, and I found that during the I already knew where I was going with the book, but I found that documentary, and I send it to so many people who say they want to read my book, and I said, oh, you have to watch the documentary, too, to go along with it. It's like a companion piece now. They don't even know it.
Well, that's why I find it so interesting, because I swear it was like 2 weeks ago that I watched it. It was so
Oh.
fresh in my mind. So I got your book, and I'm like, I know this story. Like, it's crazy that, but it just seemed like it was supposed to happen. So I did feel like I knew way more about your story. But I did learn, I mean, of course, like the more you read and the more you watch and everything, the more you learn. And I love that your book went into the detail, and I learned even more than I knew. Like, the different things in the building, different. Now I want to go, like, I'm like, I got to go back, but some of it isn't there, some of it's there. I mean, it's what
There's
happened.
very, very, very little of the original Penn Station left at what I call the armpit of New York City, which is the modern day Penn Station.
Yeah.
Nothing left. All that I personally know that's left is one of the eagles is right outside of Madison Square Garden, and so it stands there. And the first time after I started writing this book that I went back there again and I saw that eagle, I just stood there and cried. And I'm not a huge crier, but I bawled my eyes out just looking at this eagle. It was the only thing left of this magnificent train station, just this one eagle, and it was powerful to me.
I know. I was watching it with a friend of mine, and I was kind of like yelling at him. Well, I'm like, why did they do that? Why would they, take this through?
I know.
He's like, that they have to do it. And then I found out at the back of your book, you say they're doing it again, that they're also across the street, they're making something. I was like, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that they're like, that they're building more.
The post office building across the street from what's now Madison Square Garden was actually built. It was designed by the same architect as the ones who did the original Penn Station. And so when New York City realized that the current Penn Station is just a disaster, they only had to look across the street to go, wait a minute, we have this other magnificent building right there. Let's do that. So starting this year, actually, which was just coincidental with the book coming out this year, they are turning that post office into the new Penn Station, and the pictures I've seen of what it's going to be are magnificent. So I'm so glad it will be a much nicer way to arrive into the city once again.
Yeah, because, I have to say that, every time I've gone up there and, when I wasn't really paying attention to Penn Station, I do think of it like it smells. Like it's not pretty. It's not a pretty, I don't know. I mean, I knew that it was like a terminal, all these, but there are some layers of it. Like if you go down to where the buses like drop you off, I mean, it's not pretty. It's not, I don't know. So I'm all for them bringing something, that you can arrive there in a way prettier place because, it just.
Yes. Well, there was a great quote from an architect who's only recently passed away, and he was a great student of Penn Station, and he had a quote, I'm just paraphrasing here, but it was something like, with the old Penn Station, you used to arrive in the city like a king, and now you arrive in like a rat.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of true.
It kind of, yeah, exactly. And just, I mean, okay, so your book takes place at the beginning of Penn Station, and the building, one of the main characters, he's, one of the builders or, workers. And I didn't realize, like, until I saw the documentary of, like, what they had to do.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. Like, the technology, I was blown away by the technology of what they had to do to get those trains in and out of there. I mean, it's just incredible. It's
epic. It's not just the train station. It's the fact that it's a train station on an island of Manhattan. They have to actually build tunnels on the East and the Hudson Rivers, and that was brand new technology. And it couldn't even happen until you had the right kind of engine, because the engines that used to be present would have filled the tunnels with smoke. So they even had to wait for engine technology to be the kind that could even go through a tunnel. So there's so much that had to come together, and it was the labor of a lot of immigrants, really, who just, I mean, it was hard, awful, difficult work. And so just, it's amazing. And I had to have a character in there who did that. I just wanted to honor the work of the immigrants who came over and did this really difficult work that makes our lives so much more convenient because of these tunnels we zip in and out of now. But it was
that you don't even think about. Right, exactly.
Right. So I don't even think about it.
Yeah, and the character, and I was realizing as you go through with him that, the research you must have done, I mean, I never thought about what would happen to them later in life because of what they did going that far under, that they would experience physical ailments years later.
so many died, and there were also so many deaths that the bodies were secretly carried to New Jersey and then ruled accidental, just to cover up how many deaths there were even building these tunnels because men were getting so sick. So it was really quite a tragedy. But we have this, this amazing convenience now, and I really wanted to bring that into the book, even with a fairly minor character, to just honor that sacrifice.
And for everybody who's listening, I mean, all you have to do, go look at the pictures, because you realize how brave these men had to be, okay? Because there's water, okay? There's a very thin, at some point, like, as they're building, like, I don't know, when I saw the documentary, I was amazed at, like, what was holding back that as they're digging and going down. Like, I don't think I could do it. Seriously.
And this documentary, and it's called Rise and Fall of Penn Station. It's about an hour-long documentary on PBS. Yes. I find it on YouTube for free. That's where I it.
That's where I saw it too. Yeah. Yeah. So, but didn't you find it, like, just, I mean, the heroism? I know they were poor, and I know they needed money, and I understand that, but still, you had to be very brave to do that,
I think when you came over to this country, they were just ready to take any work that they could, and so this kind of work was left to them. And I wanted to show not only them, I showed them they were called sandhogs. I wanted to show the sandhogs. I wanted to show the next generation. So my first girl in this book is the daughter of one who's just starting to realize some of the benefits of living in the United States, and yet she doesn't have everything available to her. And then we have, one who has everything available to her because she's the daughter of a clothing king. So New York can give you the stories of everybody from the top to the bottom, and you could write 50 books and not even touch it.
Oh. Yeah, I'm sure. But I did love how you brought, I mean, not only the German immigrants, but the Italian immigrants also, like at the same time, because I haven't read a lot of stories about that time period, and so I found that, as a history person, I found that really, very exciting for me. So, and I loved Vera. I loved your main character so much, even though I call her the main character, but of course her daughter Alice is also, I was like, when I was writing this out, right away I wrote Vera, main character, and I'm like, okay, well, a lot of the books also Alice too, but I consider Vera, I don't know if you do too, but I consider her like the main character in this.
I consider her that way because in part 2 of the book, she's still Alice's mother, so Vera still has a role in the second part of the book. So she's really I would call her the main character.
Right. And of course, a historical fiction book can't be great without this amazing romance involved. And you covered that thing really, really well. And I think that's why, I mean, there were so many times with Vera, especially in the first half of the book, and we don't give any spoilers away anyway. So, but I was just rooting for her. I mean, she's such a vulnerable character, and I just found myself like every time she stood up for herself, every time she, it was just like I was rooting for her all the time. And that's what I always consider a great main character, when I'm like rooting for them like that. And, as I'm turning pages, I'm like, yes, you go. You go.
Good. Well, I appreciate that because I love Vera so much. And I kind of thought of her as I was writing her somewhat of a sponge who's just sort of absorbing this very changing world around her. I mean, she came over as a very small child to the U.S., so her German roots, suddenly she's in America, and her father's this immigrant, but then she has opportunities. Then she meets somebody else who presents more opportunities, and she's just kind of taking all that in and going, what's my role as a woman and as an American, and this world is changing around me. Who am I in this? So she's trying to find herself in a very changing world and very different economic circumstances that she's been exposed to, and so she really, I think, and I hope, develops as a character as these things, as she witnesses all these things.
Well, and especially, okay, so she comes in contact with Angelo, who's this Italian dude that she, like, as a young girl, she immediately, becomes smitten with him. And I love that. I love that because he's different, he's like exotic, and he teaches her the Italian, and, it's somebody for her to look up to. But, and if I'm going too far into the story, let me know. I'm not trying to give away any spoilers. But then, Yeah, then he marries Pearl, okay, who's this very high society woman, and that's when she gets to experience kind of like the other side. And
Right.
What I found incredible with her is that it wasn't like she was envious so much, because I thought that she was really good at like seeing like what Pearl did and didn't have.
Mhm. Definitely.
Like that's what I loved about her. It wasn't like she just walked around going, "I wish I could be Pearl," like I would have,
No, I think that was another one where she was just kind of observing this very strong character of Pearl. She's wealthy, and yet she's giving up so much to fight really hard for the cause of the suffragettes. And I think Vera is just looking at her going, I want some of that. I want to emulate her, but I'm not quite sure how much. Pearl is she's a very hardcore character. Anything she does, she gives everything to. So Vera's just trying to find her place among that. But definitely not in an envious way. I think she wants to emulate her, all the best parts of this other character, Pearl.
But then she realizes like what she has as opposed to what Pearl grew up with. Because you know how we always think, well, they had it better, they had it so much better. And,
right.
I think she understood that there were some things she had better, but then there were other things that she did not have better. And, she was able to actually see that, which
yes,
was incredible. But I always like to pick out something that I really love. And I loved how you ended, like, I want to say the prologue. And you start with Alice. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you start with Vera or Alice, and Vera finds this note, and it says, it's been too many years. I must see you, E. And then it says, so he was back. And then right away you go, and you're like, who's back? Wait, who's he?
Right.
And I love that. I love that way of a beginning, because then you get to answer that question as you're reading it. You're like looking for E. Like, who is he? Who is he?
Who is he? I love to give a reader a reason to keep wanting to turn the page. I
right.
like that as a reader myself, and that's my best education as being a writer. Is I'm just a voracious reader, and those are always my favorites when a writer leaves just a little bit of a clue.
Yes.
I need to know what the answer to that is, and it keeps me reading at least. So I like
to
try to put that in there.
Yeah, and I always go back and I reread, like after I'm done with it, I go back and I reread that first chapter. I've done this so many times now, and I find that the more I do it, the more I love doing it, because, what you get so much of a different, you're like, oh, look at how smart she is. She got lots of little clues. And I think you gain a new perspective of that first, whether it's the prologue or the first chapter or whatever you gain. I love seeing what the writer was doing there. And it's like, I don't know. That's just
I
the
do
thing
that
that
as a reader, too.
Do you? Okay.
I love to go back to the beginning now that I have all the knowledge of how it plays out.
Yes.
I have to look at the beginning with new eyes. So.
Yes. I don't know. Okay, so this was done through Lake Union. And what I found so amazing is that because I've been talking to a lot of Lake Union authors lately, and they have upped their game on their covers. Now, I don't know how much, you had to say about this cover, but it's like cover after cover. I'm like, wow, they have really, in the last couple of years, have really taken on covers that are just perfect for the book. And everyone will be seeing the cover, of course, when they're listening to us, because that's what will be shown. But as I look at this cover, I'm like, okay, first of all, I love that color, that blue right now. I mean, that's that's
it's
even though
really
it's sky, it's like I know. And then her in the red dress. Now, what I want to say is that Vera or is that Pearl, or we don't know, or is it she can be whoever we want, or is it Alice?
Based on her dress, she's really more Alice.
That's okay. So that's what I was thinking too. I was like, okay, it has to be by style. So based on the fact that what I know of, I don't really I wasn't there, but based on that style, I felt like it was Alice. But then I was like, well, it could be Vera, and maybe I don't know my style very well. So.
Yeah, I definitely see it as Alice, and I think they did that intentionally because my first two books are both primarily set in the 1940s, and so the girls on each of those two books are in that style. So I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I think they were trying to make my books all together look like they came from the same writer.
They absolutely, Yeah, that's exactly. I'm looking at all the covers, and that is so true, because when I did look that up, I was like, okay, so you have a theme, like you have this strong woman picture, on the front of your cover. And that's another, like I said, their game has been upped tremendously on their covers.
It's amazing. And I talked to a lot of other authors at some of the big fives and everything, and from what I'm gathering, Lake Union really invites the authors into the process. Now, ultimately, it's the role of the publisher to make any kind of final decisions, but they send us different mock-ups. And sometimes I'll get 3 or 4 different ideas that they're working with, and they let me have input. It'll ultimately go however they want, but they do genuinely let me have input. And it is so much fun to watch the process. I tried to get permission to actually do a blog post about the process and show how this cover started, but we don't have the copyright on that, so I can't, unfortunately. But it is really neat, and the Way of Beauty started very differently than what it ended up, and it's so much fun to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, okay, I was just amazed because I went back to your books. I mean, you've had a book out, 16, 17, 18. You said you just submitted another one, and you're still homeschooling your children. So, for every woman out there that you are an inspiration to, how do you do that?
Actually, there's a really good answer. Just last year, we moved from Texas to Virginia, and in Texas, I was also running a real estate business out of our house with my husband, and it got really big. I was really thankful for that, but it got to the point where the writing was taking off, and the real estate was really busy, and I could not do both. I am not Superwoman, and I had to say one's got to give. And I said, what did I want to be when I was 12 years old? Did I want to be a realtor? Did I want to be a writer? And it was just a no-brainer at that point. So we took a huge leap of faith. We moved to a different state, smaller coastal town where life was easier. My kids can walk everywhere now, so I'm not doing my real estate business anymore. I'm just writing full-time, besides homeschooling the kids. But career-wise, I'm doing that. So we made a radical life choice to say this is an intentional thing that we want to pursue.
Wow.
So, and I've also learned the art of no. This is just something women everywhere should try to work on. The art of no is you cannot say yes to everything. You cannot do everything. You have to determine what is really your path and stick to that and say yes to the things that support that, and you have to say no to the things that don't.
That's so good. That's so good. Yeah, because and especially when I was raising all 6 of my children at home, I could do very little for myself because of all their activities. I was very wrapped up in what they were doing. But as each one left, I found myself being able to say, what do I want to do? Right now, So I always, my children are now having children, and that's what I tell the women, as you're, when they're toddlers, when they're little, and, you're very wrapped up, but as they get older, keep something for you, and I think that I wish I would have had a little bit more, guidance in that area. I feel like I want to tell them to just keep it, whatever your passion is, just keep that. My one daughter-in-law is a photographer. I'm like, just stick with, have that as your thing as your kids are getting older, and because we, as you can see, we raise them and then they go off.
They do, and I really had this future vision of I don't want my last child to leave home and I have no idea who I am.
Right.
Because I've actually seen that happen with a couple of the older women in my life, and I went, wow, I want to know who I am. And my mom was kind of my model with that. She was a stay-at-home mom almost until I graduated. But she read the newspaper cover to cover every day, and that was her thing. And so some people looked at her as she was just a stay-at-home mom, quote unquote. But she really educated herself, and she had interests, and she pursued photography as we got older. And I looked at her as a model versus women I knew who had no idea who they were once they were empty nesters. And I said, I want to know who I am. So I make sure there's always something for me. It could be little, big, and when the kids are little, it's little. I was doing blog posts, and then later on I've been able to do books. So.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the key too. It's I started to see that with my older kids when they left. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this feeling. I didn't know what was going to happen. And now, now I got to find out what I want to do. I have to figure that out because they are, I don't want my last child, especially those of us who parent a long time because we have more children. It's a longer period of time. And if we push it off, it does happen. We're like, oh no, we're in our 50s and we don't know what we're going to do for the rest of our life, So.
It does, and I'll go so far as to say I think it's a gift to your children to have them see you pursue the things you love. Because now, especially because we've homeschooled and my kids get this front row seat, they saw, it looks like this overnight success with books, but it took me 6 years of editing and submitting The Memory of Us and going through rejection and everything before I got an agent and then a book deal. It was not overnight. And my kids saw this front row seat from a fairly young age of mom working and making it better and overcoming rejection and making it better and overcoming rejection and making it better. And now they see my dream being realized. And if this just looked like it fell into my lap, they wouldn't understand whatever field they are called to be in. It's going to take hard work and overcoming rejection, and now they see that. So I think that was one of the best educations I gave them besides reading, writing, and arithmetic is life lessons like that. So I encourage women to do something, even in the childbearing years, that lets their kids see them being that whole person.
Yes, absolutely. I know, because when I started to do this, my older children were like, oh, that's a cute little hobby mom's taking out. Until I put them to work. Okay. Yeah. And now they're like, oh, wait, this requires work. This isn't just a cute little hobby, So they get to see that point, and I do think it's a gift for them. I really do. I believe that too. So, well, you said you're going to be submitting for your next book. Can you tell us anything about it? Is it historical fiction?
It is historical fiction. It is set in Coronado, California, at the Hotel del Coronado. And it's another dual time period for me. So part of it takes place in the early 1900s, and part of it takes place in 1958 on the set of Some Like It Hot. So the ancillary characters are Marilyn Monroe, Tony Curtis, and Jack Lemmon, and their kind of background. There's a little interaction there, but I wanted to do something that brought in a touch of old Hollywood, but not in Hollywood. I think that's been done a lot. So this actually brings it into Coronado, but still brings that old Hollywood element into it.
Oh my gosh, who doesn't love Coronado? Okay.
I know, I love it.
Well, that sounds like so much fun. That's what I loved about it. This book was fun, and I love reading. I've been reading a lot of, thrillers. There's a lot of people out there making thrillers right now, and
that's good.
And those are awesome. They have their own thing, but when I get to read a book like this and it's just fun, I was like, oh, I love that. I didn't want it to end. It was so awesome, and I'm so glad that we were able to meet and that I was able to read your book, and I wish you all the success with this book. I just know it. I mean, I've seen nothing but awesome things from people. I mean, they're just, people are loving this book. So I know it's going to be a great release day for you. And I just wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. It's actually at Kindle first, right, in UK and Australia for April. So they've gotten it a month before everywhere else. And so I'm really excited. It's past 2 days, it's been number one in all of its subcategories like historical fiction, historical romance in both countries, and I'm so excited to get a peek at people taking a look, and I can't wait to release it in the U.S. too.
Yeah, it definitely. I'm telling you, it is, Camille. It's gonna do great things, and it's just gonna take your books to a whole new level. So I am so happy for you. And think of me when the next one comes, because I would love to read it. We can talk about that one because it's so much fun. But anyway, we'll have. You have the title?
No, I need one.
You need a title. Oh, okay. Well, I will have all of Camille's links. I will have the link to this book, the Amazon link, and I'll be seeing you on Instagram, and we're going to be giving this one away too. So everyone, go get The Way of Beauty. Thank you, Camille.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Camille and I. Oh my gosh, was that not fun? I love her. What a great talk we had about her book, The Way of Beauty. I will have all of Camille's links listed underneath here. I learned so much, and she was just adorable, and I wish her all the luck with this book, and she does not need luck because everybody is reading this book. So thank you, Camille, and thank everyone for watching.